But anyway, to the point.
Yeah.
I'd be super open to that shit.
Yeah.
Plus, this time, Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. is literally like, it's a give me time in my house with my wife. Like, pulling away from like family time is the thing that my wife's not cool with. But like, if I had a couple hours at this time in the morning, I'm up. You know?
Yeah, just go have a conversation like every month, once a month.
Dude, I'm down.
Because the way I see it is I mean, people could know they could come on and you're going to be on, and people are listening to it that are struggling. Like, that's what I want. I want these dudes out there. So I got a text from a dude last night at like 11:30 on Messenger. I don't even know him. And he's like, bro, I'm just like, and he watches the podcast.
Right.
So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, where you come on and we just go back and forth and we talk.
I'm so open to that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about it on the way. I would love that shit. So just put me in, coach.
You know what? Are we going?
Yeah.
You know what? You feel like we're in a good place.
Yeah. I think we're good.
You know what you helped me so much with, bro, was just that you remember how I can't the cravings. So when a craving comes into my mind, and you know when it takes over, it's hard to say I'm powerless, but I really am. Mm-hmm. But when you coached me on the euphoric recall,
right?
And I've always known kind of that, but the way you talked about how it comes into your head, and then you go the dark side, and then you brought up the smell. Mm-hmm. And just being there with the throw up and the sticking with the dark side of it, so you stay there long enough and it kills that craving.
Right,
bro. That's been a coping skill for like big time.
That's funny that you just said that, because I'll tell you something that I never really do is whenever I do that skill with people, maybe not never is the word, like 99.9% of the time, I don't ever like dig into, hey, what's your darkest memory? What's your smell that you think about? I put it out there. I'm like, you create it in your head, and then that's what you take with you, you know? And I think I picked up when you were like, yeah, the smell of the throw up. So like, there's your smell. You know what I mean?
Or the smell of kratom.
Yeah. Which I've never even smelled. Like I'm BK, right? I'm before kratom when sobriety day. Wow. You know what I'm saying? But like, it was funny. Somebody said the other day in a meeting, they were like, yeah, she does X amount of milligrams of kratom a day, and at this point in my sobriety and in my career, I was sitting there in this staffing, and I was like, I don't have a clue how much that is.
Yeah.
Like, I've pretty much done everything to the extent that you can do it prior to a lot of things like spice, salt, bath salts, and then kratom. And these are these new things that have come out since I got sober, that I'm like, you can talk about levels, and you can talk, and like, I don't have any personal reference to that shit.
That's why I feel like too, like when I was working with you, why you're such a good therapist, because you're just a recovering heroin drug addict.
Crackhead too, yeah, all that.
Crackhead too.
Dude, I'll tell you that one of the funniest things in the world is like, I sign a lot of letters, and I'm blessed right now where I get to go testify on behalf of one of my clients who I think is a great human being. I was asked to go testify for him, and I'm super blessed for stuff like that. And but I sign a lot of letters all the time for judges, and I swear to God, it's never lost on me. Every time I do it, I'm like, hey, does this judge know that I'm a crackhead?
Bro,
God,
that's so funny, bro. Like, but that has helped me, bro. Like your pitch on how you talk to me about the euphoric recall. You understand what we're saying with that?
Yeah.
Have I ever told you about that?
I don't think we've talked about it.
All right, so let me break it down. So this is a Charlie one, and I always talk about like there's those Charlie skills that I kind of created that I just kind of pieced together, you know, information I gleaned from psychology over the years, and kind of put together these skills. This is one of those original ones, but and it's probably not original. I probably heard it somewhere, and I just don't even remember hearing it from somebody. But I don't know. Anyway. So this is the deal. So with euphoric recall, it's the brain's ability to kind of block out the real negative trauma, the heavy stuff, and put it in this like this long-term memory spot in the brain. And then it takes like the Disneyland memories, the positive shit, and it puts it in the forefront of the brain, right? Yeah. And the reason why this is a survival mechanism the brain does, because if we consistently thought about all of the heavy trauma, everything, and that was on the forefront, then ultimately what would happen is we would just be in the fetal position in the corner of the room all the time, just crying throughout the day. Wow. And so the brain's survival mechanism says, listen, we got to remember the good shit. So what happens is we end up getting in these situations where, let's just say, a toxic relationship, right? So you're in this relationship with somebody, and then you separate from that person, and like 3 weeks later, and I'm not talking about just separate, I'm talking about no more sex, like done with sex, right?
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, you're sitting there on a Friday night, and you're lonely, and you're like, damn, I wish I could call that person. And then in your head, when you're thinking about that, your brain doesn't remember, the plates being thrown across the room and the DV shit and the cops and all. It doesn't remember that.
Yeah.
It remembers like the sex at the park and the wine and all the happy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what it does is, because of euphoric recall, it draws us back into those toxic situations in our life. So addiction is one of the biggest examples of this. Like we separate ourselves for just a small period of time from the addiction, from the drugs and yada yada yada. But and then eventually we get to this point where we're like, damn, I could probably just do one and it won't be that bad. And then so we remember the good shit that comes with drugs. One of my biggest frustrations with things that are said in the recovery community, like I'm a huge proponent of a lot of the stuff that's said in the recovery community, but there are certain things that I'm like, man, I don't agree with that. One of the things I don't agree with is that I'm gonna say this right, is my worst day in recovery is better than my best day in addiction.
Yeah.
That shit drives me nuts, because I'm like, if that's your situation, you didn't use like me. Like you didn't have like the days that I had, because I had some really good days in addiction. That's what kept me hanging on. But to the point, like when our brain is engaging in euphoric recall, those are the memories that it's pulling up. It's not pulling up those super shitty stuff. It's pulling up those positive things, those points of addiction where we're like jamming in the, you know what I mean? Like really getting into it. And anyway, so that's what it is. So what we do is we specifically and intentionally interrupt euphoric recall. And I always say, like, you're never going to be able to stop your brain from doing it. It is literally a survival mechanism. It's a psychological phenomenon that every human brain is going to do. Well, maybe not every, but the larger majority of human brains are going to do this. And so what's going to happen is what we need to do is we need to just sit with self. And I always say, dude, I'm a huge believer in meditation. I think we should all spend 5 minutes a day spending time with self and just meditate, just sit with self, just breathe. And I always say, if you don't know how to meditate, just sit with yourself and then pull your shoulders back, straighten your back up, and then open your palms. And there's different ways of doing it, but keep your palms open and upright. This allows us to be receptive to whatever your concept of higher power is, universe, anything like that. And then feet, however you want, you can do it in the style, you can do feet on the floor, and then you're going to breathe in through your nose, you're going to breathe out through your nose, but you're going to keep your lungs, when you pop your shoulders back and straighten your back out, what happens is your lungs are able to operate at full capacity. And you breathe in through your nose, out through your nose, and then your exhales are a minimum of 1 second longer than your inhales. Right. And what this does is this has a way of de-escalating your heart rate. Right. And then you can all play a whole bunch of games with like 4, 5, 6 breathing, box breathing. You can do a whole bunch of other shit like that. But ultimately, there's the base of it, right? And so with euphoric recall, all you got to do is when you start to experience a significant craving, just like pop your shoulders back real quick, take a couple breaths in, take a couple breaths out. And then I want you to think about the absolute worst memory that you ever have in active addiction. I'm talking about that memory where you're like, what the fuck is wrong with me? The next day where you're like, how did I get to this point? Yeah. I never saw myself as a human being doing this. In addiction, we all have those memories. I use the words all very intentionally in this, use the word all. But so remember that memory, but also attach a smell to it if you can. It's because smells are the sense that's most closely associated with memory. And so if we can like really hyper focus on a smell, it's going to take us back to that memory. And then another thing I would say is not only a smell, but attach a talisman to it. So some type of visual representation of that memory. So as far as like smells go, common ones are going to be like the smell of vomit, the smell of vodka, the smell of a police car, the smell of a jail cell, the smell of a hospital room, the smell of Oh, and you know another one is like candles, perfume, incense, stuff like that.
Yeah,
because like you know. A lot of times people struggle with like they'll put themselves in situations with addiction, and then there'll be like sexual abuse, sexual trauma, and all this stuff, and all you smell is the perfume or the cologne or anything like. So like all these things I've heard over the years, right? And so then you attach a talisman to it too, which would be like, you know, I've heard like cop siren, like steeples, clocks, all kind of stuff. And so what you do is, as you're sitting there breathing, you hyper focus on the smell, but then also you put that talisman, that visual representation, you put it in your third eye, and you just kind of think about seeing that, and then you're focused on the smell, and it takes you right back to there, and that's how you manually override euphoric recall, and it decreases cravings long enough to get to a point where you're like, nah, dude, I can't do just one. That's not cool. That's not going to work. It's going to take me right back there, and ultimately that's. If we can just get to that point where it's like, nah, I don't want to get back to that point, then we're good. We're good till the next one comes along.
Yeah. Wow, bro. That's so good. So what do you think about, so I worked the steps all summer, but even before I tried, and then I kept relapsing. My sponsor actually hit the last time he's like, hey man, you just need to go and tell your wife and kids that you're gonna burn, that to separate themselves from you, and that you're just gonna go burn down your life. Like this, he just said all these things, and then, but I think at Action, when I came through Action, is the first time I ever worked a step one.
Oh, nice.
Like and what I mean by that, it's like I really felt that I was powerless. Like with that drug on the shelves now. Where I honestly, my brain recognizes it as Percocet 10s. If I go get one of those Feel Frees or one of those, I recognize it as like, I'm going to get a cut. And that's, you know, before there was the barrier with the doctor. So now I've never had something that I would like to take so much on the shelf. So that's been challenging. And so when I came into Action, I really think, because I used to always kind of keep a back door open and be like, oh, I'll go to Wichita and party with my buddies. Right. I could do that, you know, or maybe a little bit of weed. If I'm on an island, I could smoke, or like there was always a little bit like, dude, I don't need to stay completely sober. But I think when I went to Action and with this experience with the Kratom, like I really don't dare. I know that I'm completely powerless, that if I took another substance that caused my mood to dip, like, so if I went and smoked weed today and got really fun and had that, and that I really know that my next thought and that euphoric recall would come back in for the Kratom, and then I know that I can't do one of the Kratom for sure. I can't do one of those Kratoms. No. So it's not like so I think the first time I ever really worked the steps properly, because can you work the steps if you don't do the step one?
I don't know, man. That's probably not. Probably not.
So I think just me, this is the first time in my recovery that I've really been like, dude, you just got to stay sober. You're putting everybody at risk.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And so I don't know. It's been an interesting mindset.
I want to tell you right now, like whenever I work step one with a sponsee, I look for three things. It's funny, you just nailed all three of them in like 10 seconds. But I look for an admission of powerlessness. B is going to be identification of reservations, right? Yeah. And then and reservations is going to be that those things that we do or those things that are going to happen in the future that's going to be like, well, screw it. If this happens, I'm definitely going to go get some Kratom, right? Like that's the reservation, right? So we identify what those things are, and then we kind of counter it with different ways. And but so again, it's going to be admission of powerlessness, identification of reservations, and then it's going to be an authentic surrender. Like, I just can't do this shit anymore. I don't want to do it anymore, man.
Yeah.
I'm done. I give up.
Yeah.
And like those are the three things, in my opinion, and in my humble opinion, that are necessary for a step one to be completed. And you just basically nailed them all in like 10 seconds.
Do you love the steps? Like, is that your?
Well, it's crazy. I was thinking about this today because I was in my home group the other night, and I was like, I read the wrong reading at the end, and I felt stupid, but nobody gave a shit. I don't even know how, like, I don't know, but I was like, I was thinking about it, how I've spent a lot of, to answer your question, yes, I love the steps.
Yeah.
I think they were divinely inspired by Bill W. and
Right.
But I've spent a lot of, so I grew up with that. I grew up with AA.
Yeah.
I grew up with it. Literally, like 12 years old, I was, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I was going to the clubhouse, the Yana Club, which is the clubhouse in Jackson. And I was going there to see my dad because my dad got sober when I was 12. And so and he basically lived there. And so I kind of grew up around AA.
Wow.
And then I grew up with like a bunch of people doing like, trying to get sober. He'd let them sleep on the couch. And I just grew up around that shit. And then my uncle was pretty active. And so he was always over. And so all this shit. And so do I love the steps? I absolutely love the steps. I have gone through like so much shit and learned so much about myself through working the steps. And then at some point, probably, I don't know, man, maybe like 10 years ago, maybe, I started to really focus on things like CBT and DBT and motivational interviewing and a bunch of just like psychology strategies. And when I was in treatment, I went to the treatment center that I went to was a CBT based treatment center. I never heard of CBT, and so I go in there, and the clinical director was like, yeah, this isn't a 12-step based place, and he was like, CBT is completely different than 12 steps and all this shit. And I was like, okay, cool, let me learn about it. And so I was like learning about it, and I'd go in. I stayed longer than probably any person has ever stayed at that treatment center, I think. And so I'd end up going and just having these like conversations with the clinical director just to kill time a lot. And so, but what I would end up doing was, because I had such a heavy base in 12-step, I would then, and I was learning all about CBT, I'd go into his office, I'd be like, hey man, these are really similar. Like, you don't think that they're similar, but they are.
Yeah.
And what I learned is, like, he didn't really know much about 12-step, but he knew a lot about CBT, and I knew a lot about 12-step, but I didn't know much about CBT. And we just started kind of marrying these ideas together.
Right.
And I see so many different similarities as far as like the evolution of working with individuals trying to overcome maladaptive behaviors and cognitions and all this stuff. But I see so much similarity of like how Bill W. and Dr. Bob developed these early strategies for recovery, and like how they have now kind of turned into this new kind of pop psychology way of dealing with shit. I absolutely love the 12 steps, and I think is the foundation of everything. And I think you can learn so much about yourself and grow as a human being and become, I always say the thing about 12 steps that I love the most is that we go into this situation and we've kind of beaten ourselves up over whatever behaviors we've engaged in. And we're like, oh, I'm a shitty person. And then when they're like, well, why should I work these 12 steps? Why do I need to put the energy into it? And I say, well, it's because they're going to help you see yourself as that person that you always wanted to be when you were like 6 years old. And you're like, I want to be a fireman, right? Yeah. And then they're going to help you like return back to that person.
Wow.
And so yeah, I love them. The reason I started with like the reading the other day is because I was thinking about it when I left, and I was like, I've spent so much energy focusing on learning all these other things that I feel like, honestly, I need to like put more energy back to the roots. And so it's funny this you're talking about. I was thinking about it today. I was like, man, I just need to read through the big book again for like the 50th time, just to kind of pull me back into it a little bit more.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, and that's what I like about Action. It's 12-step based, and you guys make the people work I mean, not make, but it's part of it, like big time.
Strongly recommended.
Yeah. What? So you notice a lot of treatment centers don't use the steps. What do you think about? How come?
It's research based. They go with the 12 steps aren't really technically research based. So one of the most frustrating things about the treatment industry, is that we have to align with what the insurance companies are looking for. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
And so there's all these different checks and boxes and all the stuff we have to do. And they want stuff that's got a lot of research behind it, and they want all this shit. And there wasn't all that shit when Bill W. and Dr. Bob were doing their thing.
Yeah.
So that's why.
So when you're like, it's like you start getting sober and you start putting together a healthy way of life, and you step into more health. I think I've talked to you about this before, because I want to bring this up. It's something I struggle with. So you start seeing a new way of life, and it's good. And you align your life with God, which for me is Christ. Ever since I've taken Christ on as my higher power, I want to say that I'm harder on myself, for sure. What do you think about that? Because it's not that I'm harder on myself, but it's just like, so say I get into nutrition for the first time in my life.
Right.
And I find out that eating healthy leads to a better energy, and I'm happier, and this is a true way to eat. And then you relapse for 5 weeks. Like, you're going to be on food. You just go back out and eat like an asshole, like you were before.
Yeah. I know all about this.
Then you're going to feel harder on yourself because you had that experience with nutrition.
Yeah.
You're like, because you had an experience with optimal health, and then you relapse back into some old eating behaviors, and now you're hitting in and out all the time. You're going to you're going to be like, gosh, where if you didn't have the experience with nutrition, you wouldn't. It'd just be like, I kind of look at recovery kind of like that, because I want to bring this up because I'm hard on myself. I think the reason why I'm harder on myself with Christ is when you study about him all the time, and you really, and you start seeing him light up, you get a testimony of like, wow, I feel like if I have, like, I don't know, I always bring up porn, or I don't look at porn, but like if
sex in movies.
Sex in movies is hard on me for some reason, or not. And after I do it, I just want to repent. I just want to talk to God about it and be like, dude, but it's more that I don't look at Christ as being like, he's just mad at me. I just look at him like I kind of see that he cries, and he's just like, because we have free agency. Mm-hmm. He's like, man, I just know you're going to suffer. Like, when you make, so I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, how do you be better? How do you not be so hard on yourself in recovery?
I got so many thoughts. So if you ever, like, first time you ever like sit down with me, I don't know if you even remember this shit, but I have a bunch of disclaimers about me.
Yeah. And
one of them is that I do not operate from a place of shame. I don't think that it's a useful therapeutic tool.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that we can use guilt as a motivator, but not a debilitator. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we can identify things we want to change, and we can engage in specific behavioral modifications so that we end up doing something different, so we don't stay in the same cycles.
Wow. Versus
guilt as a debilitator, which is, hey, I did this thing and I suck. I'm a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. So that's shame-based. And I'll be honest with you, I'm 45 years old. I know I look 26. Everybody's like, Charlie, you look 26. I'm 45 years old. But like, I have yet to find a situation in which like shaming myself has any use.
Yeah.
And so, but what we can do is we can say, this is, I'm going to do these things, and it's going to help me change and become the better person that I am. And we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea is this, and it's funny you're bringing this up, because my wife and I were on a super, we're changing our whole diet. We're changing everything about everything we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it since like early December. Well, so we're doing this thing where we're intermittent fasting. We, between 2 and 8, But then now here in the past like couple of weeks, we cut out carbs and sugar and all that shit. And we're using, this is just a little FYI on how it's something that we've figured out is pretty cool, is like we go into like ChatGPT and we say, hey, structure is 7 meals, 7 dinners, and it'll like pop all this stuff out, and then like low carb, low sugar, and all this stuff, and then say ChatGPT, show me how to make the stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll say, all right, now ChatGPT, create a grocery list. Yeah. And like it's like da, 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 and it's done, beautiful. Right? It is gorgeous. Like embrace AI, right? And so so we're doing this, and so we get this fancy scale yesterday, or she got it like throughout the week. But she's like, I get home and she's like, you need to download the app, and it's gonna like tell you like how much muscle mass and body fat, da 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 da. And I'm like, all right, cool. And so I get on the scale, and she's like, the app and the scale, and she's like titled it with. She's like, I titled the scale on the app, it's do you really need that food? And I'm just like, dude, like, I don't know, man, that's kind of shaming, you know? Like, but she's digging it. And but it's this idea of like, and I catch myself in this place of like, I don't want to hyper focus on the ways that I'm not being 100%. Yeah. What I want to do is I want to emphasize on the ways that I'm like positively meeting the 90%, you know, or the 80% even. Yeah. Dude, I had this lady one time in this group. It wasn't actually me. It was my buddy Garrett, and he was telling me about it. But he ran this group for a long time. It's a codependency group, and this mom would drive by the son who was using. She would drive by his house like 8 times, 10 times, 15 times a day, just to see if he was there, see if he was, and it was driving her nuts, right? And so she starts going to this group, and then she starts to like stop doing that so much and start to like accept that she can't control him and all the things necessary, right? And so then she comes into this group like 7-8 months later, and she's like, I gotta tell the group I screwed up. I drove by his house again today. Yeah. And so, and she's like beating herself up. She's like, oh, I'm so horrible, blah, blah, blah. And so Garrett, my buddy, he looks at her and he says, you know, why do you do that? He's like, you know, think about like, you used to 6-7 months ago, you used to drive by 15 times a day. He's like, when was the last time you drove by his house? She's like, it's been 2 weeks. And he's like, focus on the positive, focus on the improvement that you've achieved, right? Yeah. And so I'm going to tell you something. I know quite a bit about Jesus Christ because I was raised in like the true faith, which is Southern Baptist. And and down in the South, we study red letter New Testament more than probably, we study it a lot. And I can tell you right now that if Jesus were sitting right here and talking to us, I guarantee he would want us to focus on the things we're doing that are healthy and not like beating ourselves up because we ate in and out for 3 weeks. I mean that. Yeah. And so now we got to ask ourselves like, what's in it with me? Why am I beating myself up? Why am I choosing to focus on that? Yeah. Well, now we're going to get into something even deeper, which is going to be secondary gain. In layman's terms, secondary gain is going to be that thing that we get out of any behavior or emotion, and we do it all the time. Like, right, we're not really designed to do things a lot like over and over again unless we get something out of it, and that's that secondary gain, that thing that we get out of doing something. And so if we're like in these repetitious patterns with cognitions and behaviors and everything, we need to ask ourselves, what am I getting out of it, right? And if you can identify what the secondary gain is, then when you start to experience the behavior, you start to engage in the behavior, then you can say, you can tell yourself, you can be like, I don't need this. I don't need this secondary gain, whatever it is. Yeah. And so to kind of fill in the blank with what you're talking about, I would say, hey, listen, so you doing really good, you're eating a whole lot of really good food, and then you slip, you go back to like eating shit for 3 weeks. And then you're beating yourself up. I would say, what are you getting out of beating yourself up?
Yeah.
What are you getting out of it? Because you're getting something. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. And there's some kind of like maybe like
Self-pity.
self-flatulation, something.
Self-pity.
Yeah, something. You're getting something out of it, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. So what you do is you identify that. And you like sit with self and you're like, okay, I'm getting this out of it. And I don't want to continue to engage in these behaviors. And so now next time you start to do it and you're like, God, Dustin, you piece of shit. You ate an In-N-Out burger. You suck. Right? When you start doing that, then start saying, hey, I don't need that self-flatulation. I don't need it. And you're talking to yourself, right? You're having these conversations with yourself. You say, I don't need that self-pity. I don't need that. I'm better than that. And more importantly, if you were going to incorporate Jesus, if Jesus were sitting right here, he'd be telling me the same shit, right?
Yeah.
And so and now you're counteracting, you're interrupting the secondary gain that you've like historically been dependent on.
So this is something. I mean, everyone who's listening is going to understand how. So when you're at work, or you're working with people, or you get these narratives in your head that you go on repeat with, maybe, and a lot of it for me will be like what I want to say to someone, or if someone didn't do something at work the way I thought they should do it, then I'll just sit there and be like, and I'll just nitpick them, and you're just so stupid. Why would you do that? These I guess it's resentment and overly competitiveness, where you're like. So like when I get like that, when there's resentment, like okay, let's use Frank for an example here. Like when I first got out of action and I started coming back here, bro, I was a mess still, like mentally, like mostly I was just super insecure. I wasn't like no one, I don't know. It took a minute, and I would be pissed off at Frank in my head for like things and then these other guys and then I would just go on these repetitive narratives about, and when I get like that, I can't feel spiritual at all. Right. I'm just spiteful. So I started doing these, I call them like a present moment protection walk. So I pick a tree up ahead, like some landmark, and I'd be like, I'm making it to that landmark with no thought. So I would just walk. And just like you talking about, I get my anchored to my breath, and dude, I'm setting serious intention, because when you've been addicted to thought like that all day, it's hard to break it. A part of you wants to keep practicing and nailing Frank down because it like feeds my ego and helps me feel higher up than Frank or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so I've set the intention. I make it to that tree, and then I pick another one. And I make it to that tree with no thought. And I'm listening for the far off sounds like our boy Tole talks about, and staying present. Well, then like after, 45 minutes of that, like it's created some space between me and those thoughts. And now I'm the man in the back who can see the thoughts. And then there's some space between me and them, and I don't let them. It's easier for me not to let them through the back door. And now I like not thinking. Like I'm like not addicted to thought anymore. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like, damn, dude. Like why can't I just stay right here? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think about that? Like,
I love all that, dude. And like you basically, you nailed it all. I want to say something though that is super important, needs to be said in these situations is what you just said, how you let off with that shit, which is, I get back in here and I'm insecure. Yeah. There's all these people around me that have been running this shit since I've been, all that stuff. Yeah. I want you to know your ability to say, this is the emotion that's been contributing to like all these situations. Yeah. Like, that is so fucking strong. Yeah. It is so strong. Like, we get bred, especially as men, and I'm kind of apprehensive about throwing gender roles on, but men more so than not, we get bred into this society thinking like vulnerability is synonymous with weakness. But the reality of the situation is it's the opposite, right? Yeah. Vulnerability is synonymous with strength. Right. And the stronger man is the one that's going to be, the stronger person is the one that's going to be able to sit in a room and go, this is my flaws. This is where I'm deeply insecure. This is where I've been fucked up. The weaker person is the one that's going to sit here and go, nah, I'm good. I'm fine. I don't care about that shit. Right. Yeah. those were weak. That's weakness.
Yeah.
And let's be real clear about it. And so that's what I just saw when you did that. And then also like the idea of like being able to say like, this is where this resentment lies. And this is how I've been working on it. And I'm assuming you've addressed this with Frank, because if you haven't, he's fucking hearing it right now, right? But even in that, right? This whole process of like identifying resentment, making amends and everything there, that's recovery. Right?
Yeah.
And so like just to sit with all that shit. And then so there's the background of everything I was thinking about. But then on top of that, dude, I've been on this big kick. You're like hitting a lot of this stuff that I've been like hyper focusing on lately. But I've been on this big kick of like being present, like how important it is to be present, because so much, especially with resentments, so much of it, when we get stuck in that shit, so much of it is the fact that we're not in the present moment at this time. Yeah. Right? If we can live in this present moment and we can create skills to like focus on being in the present moment, it's like, it's real hard not to be grateful. It's real hard not to be grateful.
It is.
You know? And you just nailed it. That's a great skill, dude. I'm going to take it. I'm going to steal it.
Well, know? I mean, well, you know.
I'm going to tell them that I created it, you know?
It's just all the stuff I took from you. You know, another thing that helped me, bro, to do that is all, you know how at Action every night before bed you go over your the list of character defects, and you know the one that was obvious for me that Jim helped point out was like my self-importance. I never thought about that. Like I did it yesterday. For instance, I'm a vice principal, whatever, and I roll into a classroom and there's some teachers. And I had like stuff on my mind that I wanted to do. And I roll in and I just interrupt them and tell them what I got going on. And then I backed up and I was like, damn, there's that self-importance again. Like I just, you know, that helped me big time when I realized like I think what I got going on is the most important almost all the time. You know, and other people like they got their own. Yeah. You know, but so that inventory list that and I still do it. I do it a little different. Yeah. I for sure am a watcher for those character defects that like are common, you know, and I review them with God in my prayers. But that was helpful, dude. Like the character defect. I don't know. Do you think people take that serious?
Oh, they don't take it seriously enough. I think that's one of the most important things is doing these daily inventories. Yeah. And like, to the point, what you said is like, why can't I live in this place when I like do it and I'm so well at being present and I separate, I'm the man in the back and I'm all this. Yeah. Why can't I live there? Yeah. Because that's not life, man. Yeah. And we have to like, you lose the ability to be completely present. Just like our boy Eckhart Tolle says, like it's impossible, completely impossible to eliminate ego from everything. Like we think we can. We're like, oh my God, I'm so humble. I can eliminate ego all the time, 100%. But it's bullshit. You can't. Yeah. And it's because the world kind of brings us back into it in all these different ways. But the more we can recognize, hey, I'm in this place, I need to pull back to where I was, because being back to where I was so fucking good. And so I'm just going to keep working on pulling myself back. Like if we can do that more, that's how we become healthy. But we're gonna be consistently pulled back in.
Yeah, and you can't be hard on yourself when you are. You know, another thing that he talks about is creating like those mental gaps. Yeah. So like I'm working and I'm thinking, and then I get up from my computer and I need to go take a piss. Right. So on that experience to go take a piss, I'm getting present, and that's a cue. So you're creating a no thought gap. And so like I kind of work on that all day long. Like, okay, I usually got to walk. I'm walking across this parking lot to get to another building. Like I'm not going to think. Yeah. So then you get to that next spot and you sit down and you're fresh because you're not sitting there rehearsing. And, you know, you're really like you're sharp. And then so you have that conversation with somebody and then it's like, all right, bro, let's not think. I mean, I don't know, you know, like it seems like it's like crazy, but the day's better if you set that intention of not thinking all the time. I used to think thinking was like a superpower. Like, you know, you always, oh man, I can think. Yeah, like, for real. Bro, thinking will tie me in the knot of resentment and spite and another one that I do is I'll build out. So like I walk by somebody and they didn't give me enough attention. I'll be like, damn, dude, are they mad at me? Like, did I do something earlier Was I talking shit earlier on them? Do they know about it? You guys do that one? I mean,
yeah. Hey, dude, I gotta tell you a funny story. So, and by the way, you were asking what pictures to put up. You should put a picture of Thich Nhat Hanh up there. Thich Nhat Hanh is probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest human beings that existed in my lifetime.
Really?
Oh my God, he's just phenomenal. Well, he was phenomenal. He passed away, I don't know, four-ish years ago. But this is an old Thich Nhat Hanh trick. So let's just tell you. So this is what you do, right? When you're going across the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
What you do in order to fill the thought and also remain present is you say, I'm walking across the parking lot, I'm walking across the parking lot, I'm walking across the parking lot, I'm walking across the parking lot. And all you do is just do that on repeat. And what it does, because of the way the human brain is designed, what it does is it only allows us to fill the thought of what we're doing in the present moment, right?
Yeah.
I do this all the time. I've done this for 15 years, like daily. I'm driving my car. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm brushing my teeth.
Really?
I do it all the time. So anyway, the funny thing is, and I love my wife. We talk about everything. Like we basically share all these concepts together. We talk a lot. And so, like not long ago, like maybe a year or two ago, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I'm sitting in the shower and my wife's getting ready and shit. And I'm in the shower and my wife looks at me, or like she taps something. She goes, "Are you just saying I'm taking a shower over and over again?" And I looked at her and I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Why?" And I go, "Oh my God, have I not told you that I do this shit all the time?" And she's like, "No." And I like shared this concept with her, right? And she's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And but it dawned on me that like she didn't know I do this, which she knows pretty much everything I do, but or probably everything, but I love this idea, man. It's huge, and you nailed it. Like if there are those like intervals, and once those like those thoughts start to infiltrate our brain, and they're just like, and then you start to get consumed with them, with the obsessive compulsive nature of these things, and it's just like, oh, now I can't stop thinking about it. I'm gonna tell that motherfucker to fuck off. And all this, you know what I mean?
And when if you go through with that, so that's one thing. I build out assumptions or the scenarios. I keep bringing up Frank. But against Frank, like, or I'll be like, he's up to this, and he's trying to, bro. And then if you say what you were thinking, bro, you run the risk of damaging relationships. Yeah. Like, and I'm lucky because Frank knows I'm crazy.
Yeah.
You know what he knows. And I mean, it's nothing bad, but that's what's scary is you could really. Yeah, and then people will be like, "Damn, you were thinking about this for a long time."
Yeah.
And this is weird.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is like, yeah, you're right. You do run the risk of damaging relationships, but the reality is like, I'm sick and crazy too. But like, I love it when people come to me and they tell me this stuff.
Yeah.
And if it's like. So there's that initial like gut punch of like, damn, you think that about me,
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, well, this is good feedback. Tell me why you think that about me, right? Tell me like what behaviors was I engaging in that led you to think I was doing this, or I am this, I present as this. Here's the deal, man. Here's the deal, and I swear to God, this is something I've said about 7 million times in my lifetime, is that we're creatures of habit. We do today what we do today because we did it yesterday.
Yeah.
That's it, man. We're just on repeat. And then a healthy human being has the capacity of stepping back,
man in the back,
and analyzing the cycle that we exist in and saying, okay, I'm going to pull this piece out of this cycle because I want to change. And then I'm going to replace that piece with something else, some new behavior, right? And then I'm going to repetitiously engage in this new thing, incorporating that new piece. And then in doing that, I develop new habits, then new patterns, with more repetition, and then ultimately a new identity. Wow. And then I become this new person that I am, right? And then once I'm there and I got this new identity, then I like step back again and I'm like, okay, what do I want to change now? How can I be a better person now? And I say, let me take this fucking piece out, right? Yeah. And that's the mark of health. in my opinion. Is like that's how we continue to grow as human beings. The human experience is not meant to be complacent. The human experience is not meant to be stagnant, right? And the way that we avoid complacency and stagnancy is by sitting back, analyzing shit, figuring out what we need to change, and doing all that. And I'm going to tell you that one of the easiest ways we can do it is to decrease ego, Eckhart Tolle, decrease ego, increase humility, and be able to hear people say, whenever they say, hey, listen, this is this behavior that I see that leads me to think these things. And I'm like, oh, well, A, you're fucking crazy, but that's okay. But then I'm like, well, is it necessary for me to consistently engage in this behavior? Because if you're picking up on that, maybe somebody else is. Is it necessary for me to do these things? Maybe I can change that. Maybe I can do something different. But we never get to that point if when you, like you said, like when I say these things, it could ruin a relationship. We never get to these things if we're not open to hearing somebody else say that shit.
Yeah, dude.
You know?
And maybe that's why Frank's so special. Because Frank does. I you know, I mean, I'm able to talk about, because Frank knows me better than anybody, and he's my best friend, but you could see how there'd be some resent, especially with my last relapse and me just feeling so insecure. I mean, there were some hard thoughts with, you know, I thought I was like, Frank's up to something, like just stupid thinking, because that isn't that the disease. Yeah. Like a lot of the disease, like, you know, even when you get sober, you pull the kratom all out, and then what you're left with, like, just kind of like weird thinking about, you know. And I honestly, it just started getting better for me over here, I would say. I mean, I always wanted to start meeting with you. And we probably need to line that up, but I just don't even know how to have the time.
Well, we're meeting right now.
Yeah, maybe it's just, this is what we do once a month.
We can do that shit. I'm down with that.
Yeah. But you know, that's the disease, like being a watcher of those thoughts, they're going to cause you to suffer. If I attach to this narrative, and it comes in many different forms, and I want to sit there and nick at it, I'm going to suffer later today, or I'm going to get mad. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to tell you, like, when you asked that it was about, and just so everybody who's listening to this knows, like, we sat in here, we bullshitted for like an hour and a half before we even started this thing. So I'm trying to remember what conversations we had prior to being on recorded, but like when you asked about, like, what do I think about the 12 steps and how I've kind of started to, like, look at others. So, oh God, I just lost the train of thought. What were we talking about right before that? The Frank and then the,
just these thoughts, and I don't know,
intrusive thoughts, but shit, man.
Something about the 12 steps.
Yeah, but not even about that. It's like, oh yeah, the value system. So okay. Also, if anybody that's listening to this doesn't know me personally, I'm probably one of the most ADHD motherfuckers you'll ever meet in your entire life, and so it takes me a whole lot to like pull back on track. But so one of the biggest things that we do as human beings is we attempt to project our value systems on other people, right? Yeah. And so our value systems are based on our history, our trauma, all the shit that we've been through, all the core beliefs, all the people we've aligned with and put in our lives, and so that's how we create our value systems, right? And there's 3 different sets right here. And so it wouldn't be fair for me to say, Riachle, why the fuck did you do that? Man, I wouldn't do that. That's not fair. Yeah. Right? It's not fair because you've got your value systems and that's where you were basing your decision on. I've got mine. So what you can say is, like, if I'm put in this position, I would probably do things a little bit differently. Now I'm saying the same thing. Yeah. But what I'm not doing is I'm not saying my way is right and your way is wrong.
Yeah. It's a productive way of posing it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm saying that because when you enter into these situations, like with anybody, we're going to be bringing our traumas and our histories into this shit all the time with every interaction that we have. So when you're like, I don't know why I think Frank's out to do this shit, right? It's because there's some trauma, there's some history, there's some belief system that you have from the past that says this motherfucker's gonna fuck me over, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Probably won't take us long to figure that one out. But there's but be aware of like what's going on with that, right? Look at what value system you're bringing to this interaction, and that's another thing you do is like you analyze that, and I'm a huge fan of mantras. Like I'm a huge fan. Another thing, if you know me, you know, like I always like to interrupt and challenge maladaptive cognitions. I like to figure out what thoughts are not working for me, and I'm going to interrupt those thoughts, and then I'm going to challenge them with something that contradicts it, right? And so in this one, you're like, if you can say, like, let's just say Johnny, right? Johnny's this person that's traumatized you and wronged you in the past, right? And so what you do is you identify, like, well, I feel these things about Frank, and then you're like, no, that's not true. That's not Frank. And then you're like, okay, cool. And then every time you have that thought, I'm talking 100% of the time you have that thought, you interrupt it, and then you challenge it, and you say, okay, well, it's probably because of this trauma I experienced with Johnny. And then you say, Frank's not Johnny. 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 And you say it over and over again. Now, first time you say it won't mean shit. Second time you say it won't mean shit. 476 times later, it still won't mean shit. But by the time you have that mantra 16,786 times, there's the magic number, right? Keep a clicker, keep count. And like once you say it to yourself 16,786 times, you're going to internalize a new perception, a new message when it comes to Frank and it comes to this thought. This is the way it works, right? This is the way our brains are. This is Pavlov's dog at its finest. This is classical conditioning. This is like how so all we're doing is we're conditioning ourselves to think something, feel something, believe something different, but we do it with repetition, with this mantra, right? Over and over again. Anyway.
Damn, that's dope. Yeah. Well, like with, like we keep using Frank as an example, but like if I'll go down that, I'll be driving, and then here's my mirror, and I'll be like, hey, bro, Frank loves you, man.
There it is.
Frank, all he's ever done is tried to help you, you know, and that's the truth.
Right.
Like that mantra is like the truth. Mm-hmm. What I'm twisting up here with that ego isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the easiest reframe, the easiest challenge that you can ever give yourself is generally going to be the truth, right? Because what we're doing whenever we're allowing our brain to continue to engage in these like intrusive cycles, these maladaptive cycles, what we're doing is we're allowing our brain to use cognitive distortions, right? Cognitive distortions, by definition, are irrational thinking patterns that allow us to continue to engage in a specific behavior or emotion. Wow. They're basically a lie that the brain is telling the brain in order to keep the person in some cycle for whatever reason. It's a whole different segment.
Is it to try to protect them?
It's a survival.
Doesn't the ego try to protect you?
Well, if we can stay in the same cycle that we exist in right now,
right.
The lower portions of the brain is going to tell you that it's going to say, hey, you're surviving doing this, so keep doing this. Mm-hmm. This is the essence of self-sabotaging behaviors, right?
Yeah.
When you're like you're stuck at you're like you're using dope every single day, and you're like stuck in it, and you're like, dude, my life sucks. I'm a homeless gutter junkie. But that part of your brain is saying, hey, listen, keep doing this because you're surviving. And you're like, yeah, but life sucks. That's the prefrontal cortex talking. Yeah, but life sucks, right? And then the rest of the lower portion of your brain is saying, hey, yeah, but you're surviving, so keep doing it. And then it kind of puts you in these positions. It's like, you'll never be good enough. You'll never, and it just lies to you all the time, right? These are cognitive distortions. And so back to the point, right? The easiest way to challenge a lie is to tell yourself the fucking truth, right?
Yeah.
And so in reference to Frank, right? When you're like, yeah, I just tell myself the truth about Frank. And then what that does is that challenges that cognitive distortion that's trying to keep you locked in that cycle.
Yeah, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Dude, that's so good. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we haven't really even talked about drugs and alcohol. Yeah. You know, like it's more just...
This is the deeper side of it, though.
Or Trump. I mean, dude.
Yeah. we can't go down the rabbit hole. But it's just wild because, I don't know, trying to find peace. And I like what you said. I remember you telling me this before. It's like, dude, life ain't always, it's not meant to just be fun all the time. Because one of the things that I love is like, I have some pills in my pocket. I know that if I go into this situation, right, I'm going to go talk to these people. I'm going to pop these pills and the conversation's going to be funner. I'm going to be good. Like I've said this on here before, like one of the cue for, or one thing that would trigger is kind of it would be even something like this. If I was on this, knowing I was coming here to meet you to do this, it sounds nice for me to take some kratom before, because I feel like I would talk to you better. And I guess that's like the social anxiety. I think that's what I used substances mostly for was to enhance. Like I want to feel like I want to be better.
Right.
I want to, I want to make this podcast better, and I will if I take the kratom.
Right.
But one thing that I learned from you and Phil is, and I moved it into is like, why can't you just use God as your drug?
Amen.
Like the spirit, like the charity in my heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's something that you build up like over time of doing that. Like you build up your spiritual connection to a place where it's strong enough that it'll help hold you in the present moment, and you'll be backing up everything that you're doing with with the real version of the feeling that the drug used to give you.
Oh, bro.
That you like.
It sucks though, because that euphoric tells you that I'm going to be better on the kratom. I'm going to be better if I take these Percocet 10s.
Yeah.
Like I would think that we're going better, but then you might be looking at me like, damn, why is his eyes all pinned out?
Yeah.
Right. What you're talking about, those are specific. Those are called substance biased automatic thoughts. Those are like specific to addiction, where it's like the brain lying to itself. When we talked about cognitive distortions and all that shit, like those are just specific to substances. If I do this, if I do this substance, I'm going to be better at this thing. Guitar playing is the number one. Like you hear musicians do that shit a lot. They're like, they spend their whole careers playing guitar, and when they're fucked up, and then they get sober, and they're like, I'm a better guitar player when I'm you know what I mean? It's I'm a better drummer when I'm, you know what I mean? But it's not. It's a lie.
It is.
It's a lie. And what we do is we identify it for that, and we catch ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny is like the reality is I've been sober over 15 years now, and I'm so separated from the act of using that my brain can't get away with lying to me that way anymore. Right?
Wow.
If I'm like, oh man, a little dope's gonna really get me to be a little bit more talkative, I think, no, dude, if I do dope right now, I'm just gonna be a puddled up mess in the corner of the room, just like throwing up and shit. And like, and so then I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't really track. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So then it lies to me in different ways.
Yeah.
It uses ego a lot these days.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a big one. You see all these people doing fentanyl now. I don't understand that high.
Yeah.
They just fall asleep. I don't know. I mean, who knows what the reward is on that, but it doesn't seem fun. But
it's the separation from reality, right? And this was always me, right? And I've psychoanalyzed this one so much because I spent a good portion of my life, probably 12-ish years, like doing what you're talking about with fentanyl, like just kind of nodding out and being like, but I look back on like, why did I try to spend so much time doing that? And honestly, it has a lot to do with I just didn't want to feel. I didn't want to feel. I just wanted to just grind out some work, and then I wanted to come home, and I wanted to just separate myself completely from the world, from Earth.
Wow.
And now what's interesting is now on the back end, I'm looking at it and I'm like, dude, this world is so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. There's so much shit. Dude, I went last weekend. I don't know if you ever go camping or not, but I went, took the fifth wheel out last weekend, and we went to Dinosaur Monument Park in Vernal.
Oh yeah.
Dude, it's one of the coolest spots in Utah. Like, it was just sick, dude. And so I'm telling everybody, like, we go camping a lot. I'm like, but this place was just insane. And I'm talking to the park ranger, and she's like, because of the way the tectonic plates shifted and the earth did this and the river came in here and there was a drought here, and this is just like one of the most fertile spots for dinosaur bones in the world, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, dude, I'm experiencing this right now. Like, I'm looking at this like two-story wall of dinosaur bones, and this is freaking great, right? And so I'm like pulling myself back out of it, and I'm like thinking, how cool is this world? And it really takes a mindset to get from, I just want to just zone out and just avoid thinking and feeling and doing anything, to the point of like, to the shift of I want to experience everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to see it all, dude.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Bro, one of my favorite writers, this dude named Neil A. Maxwell. He's an old apostle in the church. But he talks about, like, when you step in, he talks about Christ a lot, but when you step in, like, I don't know, we can just relate it to the 12 steps. You work the 12 steps and you get into recovery. Now you're in like the high adventure life. Mm-hmm. It's like, now you're really, people think, oh, I'm partying, I'm living. Like, actually, no, now you're not. A portion of your agency is taken. You can't make, now you're stepping in, you're really being here. Now you're like in this high adventure life where, and there's going to be parts of that life that suck that you got to deal with.
Amen.
You know, but I think that's what you were saying, dude.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Dude, being in active addiction sucks the life out of you to being able to like do anything challenging completely. Like I remember when I first came in here, it was one of the first nights that I was here. We did like breath work.
Oh yeah.
Bro, and I was like terrified. And I was like, fuck, like I like truly realized I couldn't even sit there with myself. And I told Landon, I was like, bro, I feel like my head's gonna explode. And he was like 6-8 months into sobriety, and he was like, I fucking hope mine does. And I was like, damn, damn, I'm like missing out on like the grit and like my whole personality of like the grit of taking life on. And dude, I sat there and I did the breath work, and I was one of like probably the 3 or 4 people that just like cried the whole time because I was so avoidant of like myself, dude. And I couldn't even sit there and breathe, let alone admire a wall of dinosaur bones, you know? And it's like you take the ability to even have like genuine experiences out, and you just become so scared of them.
Oh, wow. It's huge, dude.
That makes me think, how do you freaking stay present with your family and not get, you work recovery all day and you're doing well and you're patient with everybody else, but then you roll into your house and it's like, my kid, I rolled in the other night and he wanted to play basketball and do all this, and I did it, but I was like, it was hard. And I get mad at myself because it was hard to go, why is it so hard why would it be so hard for me to go out and play basketball with my kid? You know what I'm saying?
I do. And man, I'm going to tell you, my wife is so much better at it than me.
Yeah.
And she brings it to my attention. Look, this is one of those things where as hard as it is for me to hear, dude, you need to put down your phone. Dude, you need to be present. Like from her, I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up, you know. But like, I really like have to sit back and just be like, no, she's right. I need to. Let me tell you this. One of the biggest indicators. So whenever you're working with somebody initially, you do what's called a biopsychosocial assessment. So you basically ask them a whole bunch of questions. Yeah. And I always say, whenever somebody's coming into treatment for the first time, inpatient, outpatient, whatever it is, and you're doing a biopsychosocial assessment, I always look for, one of the biggest indicators that I look for as far as someone's ability to be successful in recovery. And again, let me be clear, you don't have to have this to be successful in recovery. You can be successful without this. But one of the biggest indicators I look for is a strong support system. And people that have strong support systems, like you know what I'm saying? Like people that have strong support systems tend to be more successful when they utilize their support system. So in this situation, how do you be more present? I say listen to your family more when they say, this is what my need is. Yeah. Don't and then if you're like struggling to be present, be like, okay, what can I do to be better and be present? And don't like be like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Yeah. There we go back to that self-flagellation, Dustin, right? Right. And so like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna try to do better next time, you know? Yeah. And but use those support systems. I'm telling you, man, I would be half the man I am today without my wife.
Me too, bro. You know? My wife's an angel. Yeah, I know. I just get mad. My kids want to. I will dread going skiing because it's hard. I don't want to put on the boots. You know, my hands get cold. My kids want to go skiing.
It's get cold. Every ski season. But let me just pause there and tell you, Riachle like shattered half of his body and shit, and like to put on a boot means like
it's hard.
And he's like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put this boot on and go snowboard.
I have to use my hands and shove my fat ankle in there.
And you're over here like, I gotta put on a boot. You know,
I gotta drive up there. You know, like it's like those thoughts where you worked all week. And then they want to go do something, and you're like, I don't know. That's one of the things I'm working on is because when I was a big fly fisherman. I grew up my whole life fishing, and then I started taking Adderall on the river with my buddies, snorting Adderall. And then, we'd party around the fire at night and camping. And Adderall, like I'd be up, I never felt so euphoric as I did on a river fishing, taking Adderall and then just chasing it all day or whatever, those. So now I go fishing now, and fishing's hard. Like you got to be patient, you got to be present. And I'll go fishing now and my attention span, and I'm just like, and then I'll be like, and I'm with my kid and he loves to fish, and I'll get negative. I'll be like, I hate fishing. Stupid. Like,
wow.
So it's just like, I'm trying to work on getting back into being sober, fly fishing, which the way I killed the spiritual work of, when you take substances, like you hucking a cliff drunk, golly, you go back to those hobbies. It's like you ruin the spiritual side of it by taking a substance with it.
Okay. You don't ruin it. What you do is you change it. And this is a big thing, is like, what you need to do is you need to take yourself back to the basics, right?
Yeah.
You need to, like, what you're doing when you're saying, I'm working on going back fly fishing, I'm working on incorporating recovery into it and being sober doing it. You're not going to jump right back into, okay, I'm back, I love fly fishing sober now that I'm doing it. It doesn't happen that quick. But through repetition, you're going to change those neurological pathways that you associate fly fishing and being fun. Like, you're going to just change it back, and you can pull it back to where it was whenever you were sober doing it again. It just takes time. And one of the biggest issues that we struggle with in addiction is going to be this instant gratification piece. It's going to be like, well, why am I not patient and happy with this shit now? I want to be patient and happy now. My kid is. Why can't I be that way? You know what I mean? And then you beat yourself up over that shit. Just know, like, every day you go out there and do it sober, you're getting closer to that point where you're going to be back to,
Yeah, bro. That's good for me to hear, because I get frustrated with that.
There will be a reward for sure with doing that. Like, I've experienced that in a lot of things in my life, like, because I'm early on in recovery, but like, it took a while to enjoy shit, again. Is like just getting that out of the forefront of my mind, that I'm not like right in the moment feeling all the fucking endorphins rushing the way I want them to.
Has it been hard for you to get back into music?
Dude,
being sober, because you were doing all kinds of psychedelics.
I waited to get back into music until I was kind of past the rough patch of sobriety, because it took so much of my attention, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to put myself in a true creative outlet if I was clouded with like so much shit like that. But once I was able to start feeling like that I was really enjoying things sober, and it would take me like a couple hours. Like, I'd go do something, and I'd be like, fuck, whatever, like, I'm talking to these people, and then like an hour later it would kick in that I realized I was experiencing something in that moment that 4 hours from now I was going to look back on and be like, fuck, I should have enjoyed that more. And I would try and bring that into the present moment with me, and I would be like, okay, no, I am enjoying this. And then it would kick in where I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this because there's not something in my way.
Amen.
And I'm like free, and I'm like, dude, and it's like all the feelings would come into me, and like I would feel the spirit, bro, like 100%. And that's like one thing. When I was really getting my business kicked off, became super grateful, like so grateful all the time. But I was like high on kratom, like all the time.
Yeah.
And I would like feel super blessed and like be like so grateful. And I was like, I think I was afraid of losing that, but I knew it was a lie at the same time.
Yeah.
But I like took the leap of faith to bail on the whole like lie. And now I like, dude, I still almost cry every day.
Yeah.
And it's usually music that will do it to me. Like, I'll listen to music. I'll listen to my own music a lot. My own music does it to me, like, every time.
So when you create it,
Yeah, and I'll just, like, it'll just fill me with this emotion that is, like, exactly what, like, I've felt my whole life, but I was, like, trying to force it to be there with substances. And now it's, like, it just takes time, but now it's like there's nothing in the fucking way, and I can sink my teeth into it and then fucking lap it up, dude. Like truly lap up the gratefulness and the appreciation for life, and not have something dictating my like experience.
Damn, bro, what's happened to you?
Not only that, but one thing he's leaving out that he's not saying is he's now like this like Maynard type character where he's like I don't know if you know who Maynard is, but he's like this like he's creating like all the different pieces of his music. He's like, all right, I'm gonna do this piece, and then I'm gonna like record that, and then I'm gonna go play the bass, and I'm gonna go play the guitar, and then I'm gonna do the drums. Like now you're taking it. The level you're taking it to is freaking insane.
Yeah,
that's the standard I'm trying to hold myself to. Yeah, and that's why I want to do it with film too. Like, cause like, dude, nowadays I'm looking at music as like this is kind of a side tangent. Now we're talking about music, but like the music that I grew up loving is like you're listening to like Jimi Hendrix play a 15-minute long guitar solo, and they're all high on acid, and it was cool then, but it's like. Yeah, there's cool aspects about that, but now it's like I'm looking at art and the way that I'm creating it with music and film as like how can I make this like digestible? So I like am trying to pull every aspect of like giving something to somebody in a digestible way in a frustrating manner of like people's attention spans being so small. That like it's like that's just the challenge that I'm looking at with art now.
Bro.
And
I'm excited to see what comes out of you.
Dude,
you know, when I was first, I bought all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, freaking just put it on a credit card. You know, just responsible, just being responsible financially.
Just had a vision.
And so he's down there, and he obviously struggles with the physical stuff with his leg. I mean, for those who don't know, his leg is just like barely on.
Right.
Yeah.
And
he shook it off this morning, but he reattached it.
And so I get talking to him. We're like, bro, I bought all this podcast stuff, and what do you think? You want to? And so he comes up, bro, and figures it all out. Like, that's another thing about you. You're smart, bro. Yeah. Like, he figured all this out, how to put it all together. And, like, it's been a good experience, you know?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you even remember this. This is another picture you need on the wall, especially with the whole recovery thing. Is Macklemore? You were talking about Eminem. Like I love Eminem. Don't get it twisted. I love Eminem.
Yeah.
I love Macklemore, dude.
Yeah. I forgot about.
Yeah, Macklemore's really self-made in the fact that he took a lot of the different local talent that existed in Seattle.
Yeah.
And he basically built everything he had, and he didn't go get labels at the time because they wanted so much from him and all this stuff. But I was listening to this Macklemore song, and I can't remember what song it was, but he was like, we've been killing it ever since we stepped out of the DeLorean, was one of the lines.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you know that reference? Do you know that reference?
Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future is all I can think.
No. But you're right.
Yeah.
But what it is the first video that Macklemore got famous for was Thrift Shop, right? And do you remember the song Thrift Shop? Okay, well, people thought it was like just some like cheesy ass joke video because it's so funny, right? But what happens is if you watch that video again, you like they roll up in an old school Back to the Future DeLorean, and the doors pop up, and Macklemore comes out and is you know what I'm saying? And so like that line, we've been killing it ever since we stepped out of the DeLorean, is like reference to the visual art that he created that actually led to him being who he is right now, right?
Yeah.
And so like you're on something. Like I love that shit. Like, and if not only that, but if you look at all those early Macklemore videos that they created with like local video talent in Seattle and kept everything fucking local, like those videos are really, really well done. Do it. Keep doing what you're doing, homie.
Really?
That's so sick.
Yeah.
That is sick.
Go back and watch that shit. It's good.
I love that. I love those weird little like connections that artists make that like it's like if you know the lore behind their career, just some of the shit they sneak in there, it just hits so hard.
Yeah,
bro.
With like double entendres and like things that mean multiple things, and you're like, well, I know what you really mean, and it's like this legacy. It's so sick.
One thing that you hit on, we can maybe wrap it up after this or whatever. So that I see most of my joy in my reflection too. Mm-hmm. So like I'll have an experience. I'll go out and play basketball with my kid at night.
Right.
I'm not necessarily. I shouldn't say I'm not enjoying myself, because I am, but I'm enjoying myself more when I reflect on it an hour later.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
You're not present.
Yeah.
But again, like, we're all working. Let's go back to like this idea of like, I feel so good when I do the run and I'm 40 and I was like was able to be present and not consumed with intrusive thoughts and all this. Why can't I live there?
Yeah.
Right. So let's be clear. Like, you're never going to be perfect at it, but why do I experience the joy an hour afterwards upon reflection? It's because I wasn't really truly present in the moment. Right.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something about my life. Like, so I try to eat dinner at the table with with my wife and my 2 youngest kids. I try to do that 6 nights a week.
Right.
On Wednesday nights, I work late at Action, and so we can't do it on Wednesday nights. But I try to do it 6 nights a week. And so when we do it, we have this table, and then she sits across from me, and then one of my daughters, Emma, sits next to her, and then my daughter Riley sits on the bench. I sit on the bench. Riley sits next to me on the bench, right? And I'm gonna tell you something. The moments where I'm in a good headspace, I'm able to sit down at that table at the end of the day, and like Riley, she always like leans up on me, and I'm able to like look at Riley, look at Emma, look at like my life that I have, my wife and everything, and the house and everything, and I'm able to like look at it and go, this is what I'm here for. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm here for.
Wow.
I'm here like these little human beings that we're raising. Like one of the things we do it all the time. Like, we watch Disney movies on because they're young, and I'll be like, hey, yeah, that villain, that's not a good person. And they'll be like, hey, yeah, they're mean. They treat people mean. And I'm like, yeah, we don't need to be that.
Yeah.
We need to help people, right? I'm just like reinforcing these like ways to be a good human being. Yeah. And so like at the end of each day, I'll sit with my family, right? I'm looking around. I'm like, you know what? All the other shit aside, like I love my job. I love working with people. I love like who I am, what I get to do every day. And that gives me a sense of purpose. But really, when you break it down, this is my mission. This is what I'm here to do. This is the priority, right? Yeah. And again, like, you got to put recovery above all that too, because if I lose recovery, then I lose everything, right? So that's the top. But like directly underneath recovery is going to be, how can I be the best dad? How can I be the best husband? How can I like exist in this domain right here, sitting at that table, eating dinner? How can I exist there and be the absolute best? Now, some days are better than others. Some days I'm like playing basketball and I'm like, why the fuck am I out here, right? But like, but if I can, for the most part, try to be present in those moments, then I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. Like that almost made me cry.
I know, bro.
I mean, you're trying. The family is, dude. I catch the greatest joy when I get present. I'm with that family, and I'm like, and the gratitude, like, man, look what I got. Look at this little situation I got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
That's like what you're checking all the other boxes for. And to be able to like go out and bust your ass all day, doing things you care about, but you're busting your ass all day, so that you can go home and like be present in that moment, because you took care of all the other things. It's like everything else was fueled by that center hub, and recovery is that center hub.
I agree.
Also,
Yeah, bro. I don't know. I gotta learn to not like, sometimes I'll get into I'll be happy when this house, this kitchen's small. Like, bro, just chill.
Charlie always talks about moving the goalpost.
Don't.
So does Eminem, bro. He's got a lot of lines like that.
No. Now is when it's the best.
Yeah.
Now is when it's the best. If we get locked in these patterns of consistently moving the goalpost to there so that it'll be the best, then it eliminates our ability to to appreciate what we have right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we don't want to do that shit.
I try to do that daily with my health too. Like every night I go to bed, and like I don't like pray, but I like give thanks, and I'm like I'll go through my body and I'll be like, you're doing so many square inches of crazy shit that I can't even understand. I'm so like grateful for it, you know? And it's like, I'm like looking at my age, my health, even with like injuries and whatever. And I'm like, I'm in my prime.
Amen.
I'm going to be so pissed 10 years from now if I don't like recognize this right now and be grateful for it.
I'm tired of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I know you're busy, dude. I don't want to be dragging out. Your wife and kids hitting you up.
I get to go to a soccer game here in 30 minutes. It's gonna be killing.
But so you're down about once a month,
dude. I'm more down than you can ever imagine.
Right,
yeah.
Because I think it would be good. Like that. Like
I will firmly commit to that right now.
No way.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Firm commitment.
Because I just think it's just. I think you'd be good because like
this is a good format for me to learn a lot more from you too.
Yeah,
like because we're not just talking about my little life, you know. It's like a broad spectrum.
You don't have a little life, but this is also a good format to learn more about both of you guys too.
Yeah. So on the next ones we can continue to pull your story out. I mean, I want to tell everybody about your story,
I'd like to hear the nitty gritty of Charlie's, dude.
But there's like enough podcasts out there telling like I want to be able to have deep conversations like we just had and periodically pull pieces of people's stories out of as opposed to being like 3, 2, 1 go tell me your story.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
I don't know. I don't know what people. I know people need to hear what we just talked about though.
Yeah,
I think this is the format where people are able to hear it more. This format. So let's do it.
Love you, bro. Thanks for your help too. Like,
bro, I love both of you guys more than you know, man.
You helped me. Like I was glad that that I met you.
Guys, you two are like probably some of the most important people like in my life and in my recovery now. Aside from my lady and my mom,
right?
Like you two figures have been like. Major.
Dude, I always tell Riachle, like, I hear you say that, man. Just fucking remember that shit when you're making millions of dollars because you're famous as a musician. Like, don't forget. I'm gonna pull this recording up and be like, dude, I'm important. Like, I need front row seats, man. Come on, dude.
Yeah, bro. Hell yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank you, bro.
Well, you guys rock, and I'll see you next time I get to see you.
All right, man.
All right, later.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.